If light have a wave nature, it must exhibit the phenomenon of interference. When Huygens proposed the wave theory of light, there is no experimental proof for the interference of light. Subsequently, in 1801, Thomas Young proved experimentally the light will exhibit the interference. Let's study about the Young's double slit experiment. Take an opaque screen with small pinholes S and place a monochromatic light source at the left of the screen. Now, the pinhole S acts as a monochromatic light source and propagate the spherical light wave into the right of the screen in all direction. Place one another opaque screen with two closely arranged pinholes S1 and S2 to the right of the first screen. When S1 and S2 is illuminated by the incident light wave, they behave like 2-point sources of light and emit spherical wave into the right of the second screen. In fact, the source S1 and S2 will act as virtual coherence source. These spherical waves from S1 and S2 can be make interference pattern on the screen G dash placed in their path. They form a series of dark and bright bands on the screen. These bands are called interference fringes. Here, the bright band is correspond to the constructive interference of the waves and the dark fringe is correspond to the destructive interference of the wave. Now let's study the interference pattern in detail. Let the distance between S1 and S2. Let the distance between S1 and S2 be d, and the distance between the screen and the point source is d, and AB be the perpendicular bisector of the line joining of S1 and S2, and O be the point of intersection of the screen and the line. We can now consider an arbitrary point on the screen P. Let the distance OP be x. Light from the two sources S1 and S2 covers the distance S1P and S2P respectively. If P is correspond to an interference maxima, then the path difference S2P minus S1P is equal to n lambda. Let it be equation 1. On the other hand, if P is correspond to the interference minima, the path difference S2P minus S1P is equal to n plus half into lambda. Let it be equation 2. Here lambda is the wavelength of the wave and n is an integer. From the diagram as shown, we can write S2P the whole square is equal to d square plus x plus d by 2 the whole square. This is equal to d square plus x square plus d square by 4 plus xd. Similarly, S1P the whole square is equal to d square plus x minus d by 2 the whole square. This is equal to d square plus x square plus d square by 4 minus xd. Therefore, S2P the whole square minus S1P the whole square is equal to 2xd. That is, S2P minus S1P into S2P plus S1P is equal to 2xd. It can be written as S2P minus X1P is equal to 2xd divided by S2P plus S1P. If capital D is very greater than small d, then we can written as S2P plus S1P is almost equal to 2d. Then the path difference S2P minus S1P is equal to xd by d. Let it be equation 3. From equation 1 and 3, the condition for the point P to be the bright band is xd by d is equal to n lambda, or x is equal to n lambda d by d. Let it be equation 4. From equation 2 and 3, if xd by d is equal to n plus half into lambda, then at point P we will have a dark fringe. That is, for a dark fringe, x is equal to n plus half into lambda d by d. Let it be equation 5. Here n is equal to 0 or plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 2 or and so on. The distance between the consecutive bright fringe or the consecutive dark fringe is called as fringe width. If xn and xn plus 1 are the distances of nth and n plus 1th dark fringe or bright fringe from the central bright fringe, then mathematically fringe width is equal to xn plus 1 minus xn. From equation 4, the fringe width for a bright fringe can be written as lambda d by d. From equation 5, the fringe width for a dark fringe can be written as lambda d by d. Hence, the fringe width is same for both the dark and bright fringe, which means the dark and bright fringes are equally spaced. If fringe width is represented by beta, we can write the fringe width beta is equal to lambda d by d. Let it be equation 6. If the central point O is considered to be at equal distance from both the source S1 and S2, then S1O is equal to S2O. This condition is equal to n is equal to 0 for a bright fringe, and hence we will have a bright spot at O. Now consider a line on the screen that passes through the point O and perpendicular to both the line AB and GG dash. All the points on this line will be equal distance from the point S1 and S2, and hence we will have a bright fringe along this line. On either side of this bright fringe, we will have a dark fringe. If n is taken as 0 in the equation 5, we get the value of x is equal to lambda d by 2d. Likewise, we will have a alternate dark and bright fringe on either side of the central bright fringe. Note that a particular fringe corresponds to the locus of points with constant path difference of S2p minus S1p. Mathematically, locus of such points represents a hyperbola. In fact, the fringe pattern is strictly a hyperbola. But for a very large distance, the fringes will be nearly a straight line. Equate equation 6 once again. The fringe width of an interference pattern is directly proportional to the wavelength of the interfering light waves, and the fringe width is maximum for red light and minimum for the blue light, and the fringe width is inversely proportional to the distance in between the two sources S1 and S2. If we decrease the distance between the two sources, the fringe width will increases. And the third factor that influences the fringe width is the distance between the screen and the sources. The fringe width is directly proportional to d, which means if the distance between the screen and the source increases, the fringe width will also increases. Note that the angular distance between the fringes remains constant as the value of d changes. In the experiment discussed so far, it is assumed that the original point source is placed at the line joining of the bisector S1 and S2. Let's now discuss the changes occurred in the interference pattern if the point source S is shifted to the different position S dash. Let Q be the midpoint of the point source S1 and S2 and the angle SQS dash be 5. Now the central bright fringe is shifted to the point O dash from O. The location of O dash is such that all the point S dash, Q and O dash will lie on a same line, and the angle SQS dash is equal to the angle OQQ dash. So far we have discussed the interference pattern formed by two point sources. All the fringes are in straight line even though the sources are spherical in nature. If we add some point sources horizontally to the original point sources, we will get the interference patterns at the same position, and this will increase the intensity of the interference fringes. If the point sources are replaced by the slit, similar interference patterns will be obtained with increased intensity. What happens when we use two different sources instead of S1 and S2? We will not observe any interference pattern on the screen. This is because the light waves coming out from two independent sources of light will not have any fixed phase relationship and would be incoherent when this happens. If we use two sodium lamps to illuminating two pinholes, we will not observe any interference fringes. This is because of the fact that the light wave emitted from an ordinary source undergoes abrupt phase changes in times of the order of 10 raised to minus 10 seconds. Thus, the light waves coming out from the two independent sources of light will not have any fixed phase relationship and would be incoherent. Let us consider a home setup where the music is audible from the adjacent rooms. How can we hear the sound when we cannot see the sound player? This is because the sound waves bend around the corners to reach our ears. This phenomenon of bending of waves around an obstacle in their path is known as diffraction. All types of waves exhibit this phenomenon. Observe the diffraction of water waves at a narrow slit placed at its path. When the size of the slit is large, the diffraction of the water wave is quite negligible. On the other hand, the size of the slit is very small. We observe the diffraction of the water wave is very clearly. The diffraction of the wave depends on its wavelength. If the size of the obstacle or the slit is of the order of the wavelength of incident waves, then diffraction occurs. This condition is also applicable to the light waves. The wavelength of the visible light is in the order of 400 to 800 nanometer. Since the wavelength of the visible light is much than the dimensions of the most of the obstacle it encounters, we do not usually observe the diffraction. If a screen is placed behind an opaque object, the light from the point source travels in a straight line and forms a shadow on the screen. But if we look at the shadow very closely, we observe there is no sharp boundary exists between the shadowed and the illuminated region. The illuminated region above the shadow of the object contain alternate bright and dark fringes because of the diffraction of the light, and the pattern is called diffraction pattern. Let us now study the diffraction of light at a narrow slit. Place a monochromatic light source on one side and the screen on the other side of a narrow slit. When the slit is illuminated by a monochromatic light, a diffraction pattern is formed on the screen. The diffraction pattern consists a central bright band which may be much broader than the width of the slit, with alternate dark and bright bands on both sides. The intensity of the fringes decreases very rapidly. Let us now analyze the diffraction pattern mathematically. We have present the light as a beam of rays. Let us take the width of the slit Ln be A. Let the source of monochromatic light and the screen be very far away from the slit. If the source is at far away distance, we can regard the incident light as plane wavefront, or alternatively, the incident rays are parallel. When a plane wavefront is incident on a slit, all the points at the plane wavefront are in phase. According to Huygens principle, every point on the wavefront acts as a source of secondary wavelets that spread out in all directions with a speed equal to the light wave. Consequently, we found so many microscopic point sources of light between Ln, which produce secondary wavelets. The diffraction fringes formed on the screen are due to the interference of these secondary wavelets produced by the large number of point sources. Since the screen is at a far away distance, we can regard the incident rays as parallel. The diffraction formed in such condition is named as Fraunhofer diffraction. Consider an arbitrary point P on the screen. Let us analyze the condition for the point P is a diffraction maxima or a diffraction minima. Let M be the midpoint of the slit and a straight line passing through M be perpendicular to the plane of the slit which meet the screen at C. Let the line joining of the point M and P make an angle theta with the normal MC. Consider light rays from 2 point sources L and M separated by a distance A reach the point P. The path difference between these rays NP minus LP is equal to NQ. From triangle LNQ, NQ is equal to A sin theta. But for small angles of theta, sin theta is approximately equal to theta. Therefore, the path difference is equal to A theta. Now we can analyze what is the contribution of large number of points produce diffraction fringes on the screen. Let us first consider the central point C. From the figure, we can see the angle theta is 0. That means waves from all the point sources reach C in phase and hence all path difference is also 0, which means waves from all part of the slit contribute in phase at C. They interfere constructively and produce maximum intensity at the point P. Now consider one another point C1 on the screen such that A by 2 into theta is equal to plus or minus lambda by 2. Let it be equation 1. Imagine that the slit is divided into two equal parts Lm and Mn with the width of A by 2. Consider the waves from the point sources located at L and N reaching the point C1. Since these two sources are separated by a distance A by 2, the path difference between them is equal to A by 2 theta. Let it be equation 2. From equation 1 and 2, the path difference between L and M at C1 is half of the wavelength of the incident wave. Then, the waves from L and M are out of phase interfere destructively at C1. Now, if both the half slits LM and MN are considered for every wave passing through LM, there is a corresponding wave passing through Mn originating at a point A by 2 below the first one, such that the two rays are out of phase at C1. Hence, every wave arriving at C1 from the upper half of the slit LM interfere destructively with the one coming from the bottom half of the slit Mn. The intensity at C1 is therefore 0, and C1 corresponds to the first minimum of the diffraction pattern. Hence, the condition for the first minima, theta is equal to plus or minus lambda by A. Let it be equation 3. Equation 3 implies the central maxima can be made wider by making the slit narrow. We can also divide the screen into 4 parts, 6 parts and so on. And using a similar arguments, we can show the subsequent diffraction minima are theta is equal to plus or minus 2 lambda by A or plus or minus 3 lambda A and so on. So, the general condition for the diffraction minima can be written as theta is equal to n lambda by A, where n is an integer. Let it be equation 4. In between two successive minima, we will have secondary maxima. We can find the location of the secondary maxima for values of theta approximately n plus half into lambda by A. Let it be equation 5. Let us now verify the validity of equation 5. Imagine that the screen is split into 3 equal parts of width A by 3. Consider a point C0 approximately between the point C1 and C2 at an angle theta equal to 3 lambda by 2A. Now consider two waves from the ends of the two top parts. Since the width of the two slit is A by 3, now consider two waves from the ends of the two top part. Since the width of each part of the slit is A by 3, the path difference between the two rays at C0 is A by 3 into theta, which in turn is equal to lambda by 2. Hence, these two waves interfere destructively at C0. In the same way, all the waves from the first part can interfere destructively with corresponding wave from the second part of the slit. Only the 1/3 of the slit contribute to the intensity of the slit. Therefore, only the remaining 1/3 of the slit contribute to the intensity at C0. Therefore, the intensity of the secondary maxima is very less than that of the intensity of the first maxima. The intensity distribution due to the diffraction of light is as shown. So far, we assumed the light source and the screen is kept at far away from the screen. In such cases, the intensity of the fringes on the screen is less. If a converging lens is placed after the slit and the screen is placed at the focal point of the lens, then the parallel rays from the slit converge onto the screen to give a bright diffraction pattern. Note that the lens does not create any path difference in the parallel beam of the light. The wave traveling through a distance delta x in a medium of refractive index n suffers the same phase change as when it travels a distance n delta x in vacuum. This means the path difference delta x in a medium of refractive index n is equal to the path difference of n delta x in vacuum. The quantity n delta x is known as the optical path of the lens.